So, hello and welcome back to Beyond Technique Coaching. I'm just so excited to have on our next guest. I had the pleasure of being directed by him several years ago. I will not tell you how many, but he was just so wonderful to work with that I was so excited to get him on the podcast to hear more of his story and to have him share his experiences with us. He is a director, he's an actor, he's worked across, um, theater, film, uh, lots of amazing things, as well as being an expert in Commedia dell'Arte and Meisner, and he has a book coming out that you're going to want to keep an eye on. He also is a professor at Elon University, so please give a warm welcome, because I know you're clapping with me over there, right? Maybe one of you, two of you, all of you. Great. Okay, to Kevin Otos. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, absolutely. So where to even start? I mean, I see like you were born and raised in Southern California. So you've done
Mhm.
like the East Coast, West Coast, and various parts of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's part of that's part of our life in theater, right? We get to see a lot of the country. Um, but yeah, I grew up in California, and then I moved to Oregon where I studied for a while, and then spent some time in Pittsburgh before making my way first back to Oregon and then to Florida, where I got my graduate degree at Florida State. And then I went up to Washington State, and then I was back in Portland, Oregon for a while. And then I made my way to Oklahoma when I started teaching at Oklahoma State. And after 6 years there, I found myself in North Carolina teaching at Elon. So I've been at Elon now for 15 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's got to be pretty awesome to keep you there for 15 years. I mean, just like, you know what I mean? Because we do kind of
Oh,
tend
yeah.
to move around a lot as artists and things. So, what is it about Elon that, especially for listeners who might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, but part of it is Elon, and part of it's also North Carolina, and part of it's also just getting tired of moving. But
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. But Elon's an exciting place to work. It's like I'm excited to come to work almost every day, and I can honestly say that. And what's also cool is that the school continues to improve. So it's like it's a better university and a better program than it was when I got here, and it's better now than it was 2 years ago. And I think it's going to continue doing that. And the school does a good job of empowering faculty to take action and empowering students to take action. And so that attracts also people who want to do things. And so I'm very excited to get to work with the people I get to work with. North Carolina for me is also a great place to live in a lot of ways. There's every place has its strengths and weaknesses, but I like being close to the coast. The beach is just a couple of hours away, and after living in Oklahoma for 6 years, I was really ready to get close to the beach again. Growing up in California, but also they have mountains. I mean, they're not mountains by like West Coast standards. They're the highest point I think is 6,600 feet, which is the highest point east of the Mississippi, which is hard to believe because it's like I don't even know if that counts as a mountain. Uh, out in the
Right, right.
Cascades and Rockies. So, but I like it. Yeah, it's interesting and it's culturally interesting as well. And because I've lived so long in the West, it's like the East for me is there's a lot of newness. It's like I can get to New York City easily. I can get to Atlanta, Washington D.C. Um, when I was living out west, it was pretty rare for me to visit those cities.
Right. Yeah. And things are so far apart on the West too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so you were saying you're excited about, just generally how um things are growing at the university and
Mhm.
things like that, and how you're proud that, people are motivating each other, that kind of thing. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious, like, what are some of the things or things that stand out that you're really proud that you were able to do for like a positive change for the university, or that you've seen like students or colleagues do?
Oh gosh, there's just so much. Yeah, I mean, there's really a lot, and so it's like, I,
I
I'm
know
just,
I totally put you on the spot. But I love it when
yeah,
people ask questions like that, only because, when I'm on the receiving end of a question like that, it makes me really go deep, into a, oh, let me get specific about that thing and realize, like, sometimes you don't realize some of the things that you've done until other people pull it out of you, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and what I'm doing in my department, the Department of Performing Arts, I'm one of 30 full-time faculty. Um, so we're a big department. I think what I admire that we've been doing and getting better at doing as we go is our students tend to have careers after they graduate. So it's like we're preparing them for for the entertainment business, for a professional acting career as it exists. And it's not uncommon to see our graduates, on screen or on a Broadway stage or something like that. Um, but also at the same time, it's like we have intellectual rigor as well, and with that comes like the vision. So it's like it feels to me like we're continuing to provide the like real world training, if you will, that's going to help people have careers. But we're also doing the intellectual work that allows people to have a vision for how they want the business to evolve, and or their to bring their own artistry to manifest within this kind of business structure, right? I mean, it's nice as an actor to be cast and to be a part of that director's vision or that playwright's vision, but it's also cool to be able to like create your own content and have your own vision.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we're succeeding with both of those things right now, and I feel like we keep getting better at that. So I know that sounds kind of conceptual, it's kind of, but that's what I'd say I'm most proud of right now
Yeah.
with what we're doing.
I think that's huge. I think that especially people who have, gone to various training programs themselves can see that that's actually something that's quite difficult to accomplish.
Mhm.
To have that, you have the artistry, but the business side too. And then you have the things where it's like your classical training, or this is what has always worked kind of thing. But then what's the reality of the business today, and how do people actually get prepared so when they leave, they can actually succeed?
Yeah, and I think it's important to have both, um,
Hmm.
because a person wants to have the skill set so they know how to get work and they can do the job when they get work. Um, but at the same time, it's like I don't want my students simply to be part of someone else's dream. I want
Right.
them to, right? It's like I want them to be dreamers as well. I want them to have vision. I want them to develop an aesthetic. And it doesn't mean that it's fully formed by the time they graduate, when they're 22 years old or what have you. But it's like it's in motion, right? It's like the wheels are turning. So
Hmm.
it is difficult because we only have so much time with the students before they move on to that next chapter in their lives. So yeah, but I feel good about that, and it is hard. It is a tough
Yeah, it's a
balancing
tough.
act.
And
Yeah.
listening to you now, I'm just like, light bulb, because it's so cool, because seeing that you specialize in Meisner and Commedia at dell'Arte,
Mhm.
as well. I can just I just get a sense of, already those are two amazing foundational things to help people be able to have their vision and create whatever they want, like from those two things.
Yeah, I think I mean, I don't know a lot of Meisner people who are also into Commedia, and I don't know a lot of Commedia people who also do Meisner. So, I mean, I don't know. I'd be curious to meet somebody who enjoys both things as much as I do and has the skill in both. But yeah, they both have the potential to be really liberating for the students,
Yeah.
for students of acting. I mean, Um, with Meisner, I feel like the big gift there is learning how to identify and express impulses, and that impulse being that way into like that effortless uniqueness that's within each artist, and then commedia, um, you know, very renaissancey,
Mhm.
of course, but also when it's done well, it's like total anarchy. All right, it's like, well, it's like structured anarchy.
Right.
And so there's a lot of impulsiveness in commedia as well. But because it's improvisationally based, it's like once a person understands the kind of dramaturgical structure that's in commedia, you can it's like knowing what kind of paints you have on a palette, right? And then you can paint with those paints. Um, so it's a good way in for students to start to understand how they can create a theatrical universe,
Mhm.
beginning with commedia, all right, and then inhabit that and build using it. But I hope that what they end up doing is they end up creating their own theatrical universes, right? Something that resonates with them, and perhaps is, has got some more 21st century in it. But I think, I mean, I say that, but then I want to kind of kick myself because I think commedia can be very topical,
Well,
depending on
yeah,
what you do with it.
and I mean, I don't have as large, of course, of an understanding of Commedia. I was fortunate to take a Commedia workshop several years ago, and the thing that I remember most from it was just the sort of stock characters
Mhm.
and personality types. So to me, I'm thinking of like Meisner and that gift of impulse. And uh, from my studies in Meisner, I felt like for me, the biggest gift was being comfortable with really being seen and seeing somebody else, and then
Yeah.
just being present to kind of like a more serious version of a yes and improv exercise, right? It's like yes and, but I'm not trying to be hilarious, or the outcome
Right.
isn't that so much as just this like total vulnerability and like rawness. Um, that
Yeah.
that was kind of my interpretation of it, or experience of it. But seeing that like human impulse, and then you have your emotion and just your ideas and your passion for how you want to tell your story, but paired over with a comedian, like the stock characters of like, this is how we understand the world, these are the type of people, so like how do you tell your story in a way people can understand?
Yeah. Yeah. And that, that thing you're describing about Meisner, right? That whole like truth of the moment thing.
Yeah.
And the truth of the moment that is, sometimes, well, I'd say oftentimes deeper than what would be like uh perceived entertainment value of the moment, right? That it's like
Mhm.
it's about the truth of the moment. It's not about trying to be entertaining with the moment, right? And but when I see really good comedians, right? They're also very present in the moment. They're,
Yep.
they're working off the audience. They're having impulses, and it doesn't mean it's not. It doesn't mean it's a different impulse than they had, the night before. But it's like they're having the experience, right?
Mhm.
They're experiencing what it is that they're doing, and I think with Meisner techniques focused on getting enthralled in the other person and listening so fully and with that kind of openness, that giving over to the other person. um it's a great initial premise to learn to embody for an actor,
Mhm.
because it's something that'll you can build a lot on, and will serve the actor in a lot of different mediums as well, different styles, different mediums.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and actually, I was going to bring this up later, but since we're on the topic, can you
Yeah.
tell us a bit about your book and like what inspired it and the process of it, when people can expect it? We're going to have the link in the comments, you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So excited about this book. It's called Applied Meisner for the 21st Century Actor. I've co-written it with my teaching partner, Kim Shively, who also works at Elon University. And what inspired us to get started on the book was when Kim was hired. She asked, she and I had both gone to the same training program, though at different times. So we had we shared some teachers, but we had slightly different teachers. And when she was interviewing for the job and we were talking, she asked me, "Can you really teach Meisner to undergraduate students? Are they mature enough to to deal with it?" And I said yes, because we had found a way to do it. And so when Kim joined our faculty, she asked if she could sit in on my class. And I was like, well, yeah, if you want to, sure. Um, so she sat in on the class, and then we continued to have conversations throughout the semester. And one of the things that she was um, really encouraging about is saying that Kevin, you're teaching Meisner, but you're teaching it in such a way that it really is um, accessible and in some ways nurturing in a way that when people think of Meisner, they don't always think of those things. It's not the first thing that comes to mind. And Kim also teaches Meisner at Elon. Two of the three core acting classes are Meisner based, and and so after a couple of years of us kind of exchanging notes on this and touching base with one another for a while, we decided, let's go ahead and write a book. Um, I was the more reluctant of the two of us to do so because I had never really thought of writing a book. I thought, there's already enough books. What we need to do is read books. We don't need to write more. But I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I changed my mind because I learned something. And so what Kim and I were able to do writing this is we've put together a book that is like clear, accessible, positive. Um, I never met Meisner, but by most accounts I hear, it's like he could be very confrontational in class, and so I think a lot of people who teach Meisner are either knowingly or unknowingly imitating Meisner's confrontational teaching style, and um, and that turns some people off.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to conferences with acting teachers and I tell them I teach Meisner, it's like, half the people lean forward and are into it, and half the people look terrified. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, how can we? But there's nothing inherently terrifying in the core premises of Meisner's approach. Um, and that's what we teach, and that's what we build on. We don't do the entire Meisner progression. We're pretty selective with what we teach. The foundational stuff, which I consider to be, the importance of the other person, the reality of doing, and the importance of impulse, those
Mm-hmm.
being like the three core tenets. And then we build off of that and move towards then we start moving towards what we call need, which is kind of like objective,
Yeah.
and then also a point of view on the other person, which is kind of similar to Stanislavski's idea of relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and then actions, right? Those verbs we're playing as we're
Yeah.
trying to get our needs met. Yeah.
So
But we build off of those core bases doing that, and then we've adapted and we've selected and we've used some select Meisner exercises in our curriculum, and that are in the book. So the book's coming out in May of this year. Super excited about that. When the publisher sent it out for like peer reviews and stuff, it's like they've been very positive. The peer reviews talk a lot about the clarity of it. Um, we deal with like boundaries and consent within these structured improvisations, and so we're working ethically
mm-hmm.
um, from a 21st century perspective, and and um, and that feels really good too. So we're getting some the initial feedback on it's quite good. I'm just totally going off here. It's like
No,
it's
it's great. Like
professor. It's like I can
I
just
think
keep going.
it's wonderful, and I think it's fantastic. Especially any listeners out there, if you had a bad experience with Meisner, get his book, read it. Like, or if you're curious about it, get it and read it. I have to say, like, um, if you're not watching the video right now, like I'm lighting up. I'm just so excited because I got to study Meisner in undergraduate with my teacher Kim Rubenstein, and it was one of my favorite things that I learned. I still remember I got to do like a scene from After Miss Julie with one of our like, the need exercises. And it was
Mm-hmm.
just, it's one of those things that really stands out as one of my favorite things that I've learned. And I can still, like, you still get a bit of the visceral experience of it when
Yeah.
there's that aha of like, oh, this is what's going on in the scene underneath what they're saying. This is what they're actually feeling. This is the, it's just it's when taught well, I think it's one of the best things that people could learn.
I think so too. And when you said visceral experience, it's like that's the thing because then it's like the actor remembers, effortlessly remembers. They remember the sensations,
Hmm.
and so when we experience those sensations doing the exercises, it becomes easier for us to experience whatever those imaginary circumstances are in a scripted work. Um, so it can be super helpful when it in my view when it's taught properly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Awesome. Very cool. Okay, so let's see. um I think I'm gonna backtrack now and actually ask,
Yeah.
how did you get into theater? And I mean, you're a director as well, and
Mhm.
so, just, did you always want to do both? Did you start off with one and then the other? Did you ever want to do anything else? Like, how did you get here?
Yeah. So okay. So by theater standards, I think I was kind of late to the party. I was a senior in high school, and I was giving a speech in my government class, and the drama teacher happened to walk by, and he stuck his head in the door of the government class. And when I was done with the speech, he looked at the government teacher and said, "Can I talk to him for a second?" I had never, I mean, I knew who he was, but we had never like spoken to one another at all. And I went out into the hallway and he said, "You've got a great voice. I think you should come audition for the play." And I was like, "Really? What?" And
Talk about getting discovered, you guys.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So, I went ahead and auditioned. Um, and I was eventually cast as the dad, Jack, in Brighton Beach Memoirs. And I had never had an acting class. I had never been on stage. One of my castmates told me that when you're working in a proscenium theater, which I had no idea what that meant, that I should gesture with my upstage hand. And um, so I'm always gesturing with only one hand, and it's always the upstage hand. Even when I like quickly turn around, I just switch hands. Um, but it was really a lot of fun. I had a great experience, and so then I went out for another play, um, something where I got to be a little more funny in Tina Howe's Art of Dining, and and I had a great time with that, and I really enjoyed making people laugh. And so I thought, okay, when I go to school, it's like I'll keep up with this drama thing. And then when I went to college, I was changing my major all the time. I started out as journalism, then I was poli sci, then I was something else, then I was psychology. But but by the time I settled on like getting psychology, all right, by the beginning of my junior year, I was like, it's going to be psychology. But I had acquired so many theater classes just from making sure I took one or one or two theater classes a semester to round out my schedule that I realized, oh, I can actually graduate with both. So why not if I plan it right? So why not do that theater thing? And I was getting cast in plays and enjoying that. And so that's when I started to get really serious. I guess would be right around my junior year in college. And I started getting ready for like graduate school auditions because I knew I needed more training, and I really loved the stage. I wanted to be a member of a repertory company and make my career as a regional theater actor. I wanted to job out and, you know, do that whole thing. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, and then eventually I ended up going to the University of Pittsburgh, and things were okay there, but I don't know. I felt the need to change. I ended up at Florida State. Um, and that was great because I was a member of a repertory company as a student, got to work alongside a lot of professionals, and that was very interesting and very educational. And I think working opposite professionals whenever possible as a student is a fantastic learning experience, learning in ways that you don't expect. And then after that, I graduated and started doing it for real, or outside of an academic environment, right?
Yeah.
So I moved back to the Pacific Northwest and, um, was based out of Portland for a while and all of that. Then when I moved to Oklahoma and took the job at Oklahoma State, that's when I started doing screen work because there just wasn't, at that point, I was a member of Actors Equity and there was no equity theater to speak of
Mm-hmm.
in Oklahoma. And so if I wanted, after kind of being grouchy about it for a couple of years, I thought, well, I can either be grouchy about all the work that isn't here, or I can do the work that is here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I started, I did a student film, and while I was on the set for the student film, I met somebody who recommended me to an agent. The agent liked me. I ended up having an agent in Oklahoma City. I had an agent in Tulsa, and they were sending me out, and I was in like the furniture commercial, and I was in the knee replacement commercial, and I did like a UPAC moving commercial, and I was in, heart surgery commercial. So I was in, I started it was when I was in Oklahoma that I booked these local commercials. And it was kind of funny because how late night on TV, it's like the commercials, you can tell when like the discount rate for commercials comes up because
Uh-huh.
you start seeing more local commercials. I mean, there were a couple nights when I was in Oklahoma watching TV and it'd be the commercial break and two commercials would come up. I'd be in both of them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that was fun. And then when I moved out to North Carolina, there was more of a film industry out here and television, and so I was able to get into like um, more serious like network stuff.
Hmm.
Commercials never really worked out for me in North Carolina. I don't I have no idea why it just didn't. But
Watch you book one tomorrow.
right,
We'll have to redo this whole episode.
that's
Just
right.
kidding.
That's right. um, Yeah, yeah, but it was cool to get to get hired by One Tree Hill, and it was cool that they had me back, um and the Finn Cannons, who were the casting directors on that, they would call me in for other projects, and so it was nice to get some momentum going, you know. Now I had heart surgery a few years ago, and so I stopped auditioning with after that. And I need to come back, right? It's been a couple years now, but I want to I got to get the book launched and all of that, and then I'll be coming back to screen acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's exciting, and it's I I feel like every artist and probably really every human we know, like there's always these twists and turns that we didn't expect, and just what you were saying about when you were in Oklahoma, you could be grouchy about what wasn't there, or you can just say, hey, I'm going to make the most of what is here, and I think that's just huge for everyone wherever we are in life.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I wish I had learned that when I was younger, because uh, I when I look back on my early 20s, I spent a lot of time and energy grouching about what wasn't happening, um,
I
rather
feel
than
like
making
it's so
what's
sorry.
that?
I not to interrupt you, but I feel like that's such an incredibly hard thing for people to learn when they're younger, because I feel like when we're younger, we're just doing the toddler tantrum thing until life like holds us down enough in one spot to where we get tired and we're like, okay, time to change my perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, same. I wish that, like, I think it's awesome what, and I know the industry has changed too, of course, with people able, you can make your own web series, or you can make your own podcast. You can do your own things now without having a huge budget, which wasn't the case when I was in school. Um, but just like, I wish I wish right when I got out of school, I had got it in my head to stop waiting for other, like, to stop going to the gatekeepers. I wish I
Mm,
like immediately knew, like, just be making your own stuff all the time. Don't wait on
yeah.
everybody.
Yes. I don't know how it was when you were in school, but when I was in school, it was kind of frowned on to do more than one thing. There was a lot of pressure to, like, if you're if you're a designer, design. If you're a writer, write. If you're an actor, act. If you're an actor who also designs, then people don't know how to think of you.
Yeah.
It was like there was kind of a message from my teachers about, like, I guess you could, they didn't use these words, but like, don't muddy your brand. But today it's like you were saying, it's like the reality of the situation is just so much different. and
Yes.
and
Yeah, like in the other way, it's like you have to now to be taken seriously. Whereas
mhm.
before, don't, you specialize and that's how you get taken seriously. And that world
Yes.
just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's totally changed, and that's it. And I think it's cool because I think people, especially creative people, want to stay stimulated. They want to do a variety of things, and today, in today's business, people can have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Um, so let's see. Okay, so I also wanted to ask you, oh, you had mentioned when you were in Florida and you were learning from like professional actors, there's certain things you
Mhm.
just, you couldn't learn in school. Or is there anything that particularly stands out, like a piece of advice that you got from one of the professional actors, or something you observed from them that just, was like an aha moment, or even just bad advice you wish you didn't hear. You just saw them like, you know
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's lots of good. Um, I mean, there were a lot of good practical advices. Where it's like, um, when things are going wrong on stage, you know, look out and pick up your cue, right? Rather than like go inward, try to figure out what's going on and somehow like slow everything down. It's like, so there were hints or advice like that was useful. One of the things that was cool about being in so many plays in repertory, and being able to, like when I was in the Life and Adventures of Nicholas Nickleby parts 1 and 2, it played for 5 months. Okay.
wow.
And while that was happening, I was also in a production of Much Ado About Nothing, and I was in a production of some play I can't think of the title of right now, and I was understudying 2 other plays, and I was taking classes. So I was super busy. Now, but what's interesting about being in a run that's long is, like, I really started to understand how important choices are,
Mm.
because the director opens the play right after 4 weeks of rehearsal or thereabouts, and then the director's gone doing whatever the director's doing, but the company is there for several months playing those choices. And so it made me appreciate that as an actor, you've got to be an active participant in the creation of the play. Unless you're okay being stuck with a lousy choice that you have to play for the next 4 months or longer, right? So I kind of learned through that. It's like, oh, well, in this play I was more of an active participant. In this play I wasn't, and I really like doing this play a lot more than I like doing this other play. Um, yeah, so that was something I learned when I was in repertory as well. The And working with so many different actors with so many different approaches and egos and interests and all that kind of stuff, and temperaments. I also started to learn what I think is an important lesson, is that you got to let people be who they are, right? It's like, that person wants to freak out. That's They're choosing to freak out, right? It's like, I don't need to judge it. I don't need to be embarrassed by it. It's what that person is doing. Now, if it gets directed towards me in a way that I think is unfair, or that, like, I don't know, exhausts my patience, then I'll stand up for myself, right? But it's like, you got to let people be who they are, and without having really. in a lot of ways without having any kind of emotional reaction to it. It's like in the now I'm talking, when we're acting, it's different, right? But in the rehearsal hall, it's like this person's doing what that person needs to do.
Hmm.
I don't get it, but they're doing it, and
I feel
they're a
like you have such a
person.
specific example right now where you're not throwing the person under the bus. Because I'm like, I want to know, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it was so long ago too. It's like I don't
Yeah.
remember specifics anymore, but yeah, that was a good experience.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so those were a couple lessons that came away from that. In addition to, like, craft and the stuff I was learning in class, and
Right.
getting to practice that on stage an awful lot was good.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that lesson of letting people be who they are, and then also the when people tell you who they are, believe them.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
one. I got I remember this advice that I got from an older actress on tour years ago, and it was something like that. When people tell you who they are, believe them, but it was also listen to the words that are coming out of their mouth. Um, because I definitely had a tendency, and I still love to see the best in people. It's just now I'm older and wiser to be like, okay, well, that's not fair to just see people like for the best. You have to see like the whole person,
Mm.
warts and all. You got to see, you got it, you just got
Yeah.
to. And that I think as humans, we tend to have a tendency towards one or the other versus
Mhm.
like the whole, like seeing the whole thing. I think takes time to get to that point, you know? Um,
Yeah.
so, and I guess that's another gift of getting to train as an actor and director is just that the time and the practice of getting to know characters. And when the experience you had 5 months with a character, 6 months with a character, having more and more time to learn all about them in various layers and not have to be attached to what you would have learned about them in 1 week, because obviously your depth of understanding should be more after spending so
Yeah.
much time with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it definitely, it deepens.
Hmm.
But I loved what you were saying, Samantha, about the that kind of well, awareness that people are whole beings, warts and all, right? And are full of contradictions, and to be able to be aware of that, but also to appreciate that, right? It's like, and this was something I didn't get when I was younger at all. It's like I was really frustrated by people's contradictions. But now I really have to say I love the contradictions in people, and I love the contradictions in me. I mean, they can be troublesome sometimes, but I really feel like that's where the humanity is in the well, in something that's unpredictable, something that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
Is Yeah.
Wow, what you're saying about I feel like I'm making more peace with the contradictions in myself of just, that just means I'm human. Everybody's human. We all have those contradictions.
Yeah.
Um and then also, keeping myself accountable for the things where it's like, okay, what should I get better at? What can I get better at? And then the things where it's like the serenity prayer of just like courage to change the things that you can, and wisdom
Right.
to know the difference of just, okay, well, if this is just how you are, then how do you use that knowledge and work with it to make your life easier? um and totally spaced the second thing that you said about, oh, that's the most, those are the most interesting characters I think to watch. Those are the stunning performances that we love when uh we see our actors and actresses do that. um those are the ones that really stand out, and I'm realizing that's one of the reasons why I love playing, like that's why I love playing like Lady Macbeth or Medea or somebody that people have just pigeonholed into being evil. I love to play them and find that contradiction, make them human.
Yes. Yeah, I like doing that too when I get to take an unlikable, or I don't know. Anyway, to take a
Right.
possibly unlikable character and make them and make them likable and find the humanity,
Hmm.
right? That, yeah.
Yeah. And oftentimes I'll feel like, I get so on their side when playing them that, I feel like I have to defend them when, it's like, of course, no, I would never make their choices. But
Right.
right now. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is one of the cool things we get to do as actors is we get to experience the justification, right, for the behavior. That, like, Medea, for example, is, she's doing what she understands to be, right, natural, and necessary.
Hmm.
And we get to walk in those shoes, when we play those kinds of roles, and it's, I don't know, it develops empathy.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Biggest thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, let's see. Okay, so I know we're coming around to time and I'm wanting to make sure. Oh, there's two questions that I for sure wanted to ask. Okay, so one of them, for any prospective students that are out there listening to this episode, what advice would you have for them? Because I know it's like it's really competitive getting into the program that you want to. Like,
Yeah.
what advice would you have for them to, you know, things for them to think of or to prioritize? What would help them stand out?
Yeah. Well, I think, sure. So, I think, like being watched by people. Okay. So I see a lot of auditions where the person seems like they do not want to be auditioning, and like they don't want to be seen. All right. So I think start with, like, I like being in front of people. I like doing choose material that a person enjoys doing,
Mm-hmm.
that you feel good being seen while doing it, right? And if a person's nervous just being up in front of people, that's, like, for me, that's a red flag, where it's like, we got to be careful. This person seems like they don't want to be in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
So before we even get to the craft, it's like, is this person comfortable being seen by other people?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Um, then, like, in the monologue, um, variety, and as actor to actor, I can say you got to have many different actions or tactics or verbs or whatever you want to call it. I'd say in a typical, like, 75-second piece, I think a person wants to have at least half a dozen, and different actions. Um, and if the piece makes a journey, I think that helps too. The person starts in one emotional state, and then by the end of the piece is in a different place,
Mm-hmm.
right? Has discovered something. Um, so those are some of the things that, yeah, I'd say most of the auditions I watch, like, one of those three things isn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I, c- I can also tell when a person loves the material they're doing. That's a great gift for an actor, and I think especially, like, a young actor, where it's, I mean, if you can find that material that you're just, like, excited to do it, right? So that it's not about pleasing who's ever watching, right? The person, but it's not about pleasing my audience. It's about, I get to speak these words. I get to go on this journey, right? So that brings a kind of level of agency and joy into the work.
Mm-hmm.
And by joy, I don't mean, like, happy, happy, ha ha, but, like,
Right.
but it's like, I want, this piece makes me want to act.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see that in pieces too, whereas a prospective student really loves the piece they're doing, versus, I chose this piece because I think this is what they want to see, right? Which, again, it kind of puts them in the place of, like, I need to please these people. As actors, we're always in this position, right? It's like, of course we want to please the people who can
Hire
hire
us or
us, right,
yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
advance our careers. We always want to please them, but it's got to be about me doing it too, right? I could be doing lots of different things, but it's like, I want to enjoy what I'm doing as well, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't work out, but in this moment, these two monologues, I'm going to get something out of it. All right. And then they have a chance of getting something out of it.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense at all.
It does make sense, because well, I mean, what I'm hearing too is like so much of it is about being present. Like
Mm,
if they don't want to be seen, they're not present, they're hiding. If they're
yeah.
just monotonous during their monologue, they're not present, they're just in their head, they're not moment to moment. If they're doing
Yeah.
material that they love and they're there knowing that it's a gift that they get to do it, they're totally present in the experience. They're there and then you get to experience it together. And if they're just there to please you guys, it's not, the focus isn't even on the craft then. It's not even on the
Mhm.
monologue or the moment. It's on their objective is completely outside what's actually
Yeah.
actually going on. And you know, this is also making me think about the note about like desperation, which
Mm,
people would talk about a lot in LA too. You know, like so many actors are
mhm.
so desperate, and not just
Oh,
actors, but it's like people can smell that desperation on you, and it's the neediness. Like neediness is not attractive in whatever you're doing, because I think people don't want to feel you grasping onto them for dear life because they need you. They want to meet you like as a partner and have this exchange of energy.
yes. Yes. Yeah, you're right. That neediness is a definite turnoff. And and neediness also, in my experience, can also quickly become high maintenance.
Ah,
Right. And
yeah.
so, and so and people also, I mean, and me too, go through phases of being needy, right? And it's like that's different if it's like, oh, this person's going through something, but yeah,
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 that's the
we need to avoid it.
tricky, right? And that's the tricky, another one of those. Oh, my contact is acting up right now. But
Oh.
that's a no. So don't mind me rubbing my eye. It's not the neediness. No. I need eye drops. No. but but I think that's the hard. It is such a hard balance of you know, most artists, it's like you pursue it because it feels like the air that you breathe. You do need it.
Mhm.
Like it
Yeah.
feels like very urgent, but at the same time, it's like, which is why it's so great to do your own stuff, because then
Mhm.
you get to fulfill that neediness yourself without going to other people like, please, Sam, I have another job, please, tuppence for me, you know. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, and that balance between the neediness or just the sort of jaded, like, well, I don't care, like just the balance of in between of being just being present. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, and it is difficult to find, and it's
yeah,
something that I don't know, I wish I'd found earlier where it's like I want it enough that I'm motivated to prepare to the best of my ability. But as soon as I finish, hey, I got stuff to do. I got a life to live. All right. I got other things to do so that I don't I'm motivated to do my best work, but I don't need it so badly.
yep, yeah,
Yeah. I wish I'd learned that earlier.
yeah. I think we all do.
Yeah.
No, I mean about you specifically, not me. I learned. No, I'm kidding. It's terrible. Yeah, I definitely feel like that's something that I would imagine pretty much every actor I know would feel like they learned
Yeah.
sooner. That's
Yeah.
yeah. So, well, oh boy. I feel like I could just keep talking, asking you questions for hours and hours. But let me just, I will ask you now the question that I have to ask, because it's like the I have to because that's the
Oh,
at the heart of that's at the heart of why I like want to do the podcast, right? Is just how how has performance skills, which you already touched on some of these, but how has it improved your life? How has it helped you through any difficult challenges in life? Better prepared you to like weather the ups and downs in life?
yeah. Yeah. So this is interesting. Um, so I think, because I've been thinking about this, I think, I think what I've learned, like the big things I've learned, and I mean, learn them in my heart, is is to listen. I think if I had not become an actor, I think I'd be a terrible listener. Because I was a terrible listener before I became an actor, like really studied. Um, and with that listening comes empathy, and but also it's like experiencing real emotion in a make believe situation. I think I think I've developed a pretty good relationship with my emotions, where it's like I feel them fully, but I don't take them so seriously that they like in, impede me too much, if that makes sense. So so I feel like I have a pretty good handle on like experiencing things deeply and then meaning everything, but at the same time also knowing that it's like it's just another feeling, right? And it's not that I don't like them, right? Or that I, or even that I do like them, but it's like I'm going to experience feelings the same way, you know, we experience the weather, and in some ways. And so I'm not as attached to my feelings as I used to be, you know. And I think that was one of the things that twisted me up so much inside when I was all full of angst in my 20s. Um, is I just identified with my feelings so much. So I think acting has helped me learn to just have a healthier relationship with my feelings. I mean, I feel things deeply. I feel things passionately, sensitively, like I think a lot of actors do, a lot of creative people do. Um, but anyway, it just doesn't tie me up inside as much as it used to be. And so with that has also come a certain degree of playfulness. And so I'm more playful than I would be if I was not an actor. And it comes from having, I don't know, just a healthier experience with being a human being, I guess. Um, yeah, because you know, there's there are certain things that happen in life where I think it's helpful to, I don't know, that it doesn't diminish the importance of what's happening, but it's like there's also like an awareness of like this is this is one of those crazy things that happens in life. This is an absurd event. Um, Yeah, so I don't know. There's probably a better word for it than the way I'm describing it. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's maturity, but I feel awfully immature.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
so funny. Yeah, I feel like I still feel like I mean, I feel like as old and as young as I've always felt, but I think I feel younger now than I did when I was younger. Like
Mm.
I know that I'm
Oh, I love
wiser.
that.
I right? Like I know that I'm
Yeah.
wiser and yet I feel like I take myself less seriously and
Mm.
yet I hold myself accountable. It's like I live my life actually more seriously. Like I hold myself more accountable to certain things of not like I was all like a nilly willy like whatever, but it's just I I have a better handle on not taking things personally, seeing people for more of who they are, you know, not just living in like, this is my ideal of whatever I'm doing. So it's like a more mature and wiser outlook. And yet I feel younger and that I'm taking it less seriously than I did when I was younger. So I I feel you on what you're saying, you know?
Yeah.
I it's I think it's a great thing. And the whole thing about that as creatives having that safe space where it's encouraged to feel all of our feelings,
Mhm.
and then it's great to be able to safely feel all of our feelings and know it doesn't mean we have to do anything about them. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean we have to choose to act in any certain way. Instead of, I think, um, which would probably be more of a tendency of pushing it away, because it's like, well, if you can't act on it, why even experience it? You know, you just don't acknowledge it, or you don't push it away, or you haven't allowed yourself to really sit with it so that it can kind of pass and do its thing.
Yeah. Yeah. to allow it so that it can pass, rather than resisting it and then it like lingers,
Yeah.
But you know, yeah. Well, I love what you're saying, and it goes back to that whole being present thing, that you mentioned earlier in our talk. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it,
And
I mean, yeah, it's hard to describe, but it's like I would be a totally different person if I was not an actor. I mean, like radically different. Um,
yeah. You I mean, I think about that too because I might have mentioned it on the podcast before. I mean, obviously not this episode, but like one of the things I really wanted to be when I was younger is a lawyer. And if I hadn't done acting and I just been a lawyer without my acting training, I would definitely be a different person. And I used to be very type A when I was little. Some would say I still am. But I used to be very like, I had an outline of when my friends would come to the slumber party of all the things we would do at like and just like I still have checklists, but I'm much more like laid back now because I couldn't function that way in the arts the way there's just so much change. I had to like roll with it more. But I'm just thinking if I didn't have to learn to roll with it more, what would that little girl making her checklists and saying like we're going to have fun at this time like what would she have turned into if I would have been probably saving the world but in a different way right now. I'm
oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
Oh, I
it would
totally
have
do.
been
And
it would have been very different and I don't imagine that I would sit down with my with and be like it's okay, let's just have this feeling and let it pass. I don't imagine that she would have grown up into that until there's probably some major life change in which you know we all learn the things that we have to learn in our lives. I do believe that,
oh
but it
yeah.
but it wouldn't have been as pleasant. I think.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, one of my teachers told me that the lesson is repeated until learned.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think that's, at least in my experience so far, that's true. Um,
Same. And I admit if there's any like whenever I've gone through something that has been especially unpleasant, I've usually taken that opportunity to nerd out a bit and like just think about why did this happen and
mhm.
what could I have done differently, even if it's not your fault, because oftentimes it isn't your fault. But,
Yeah,
like just really like pick it apart. To just say, like, hey, I don't want this to happen again. Let's pick it apart and learn the lesson once. Let's have it be a
yeah,
one and done, please and thank you.
right. Well, and that's something we get as actors too, right? Is we're able to be very specific, right? Because when we're putting together our performances, right, we go from like moment to moment to moment to moment, or from beat to beat to beat. So yeah, I found that actors, and not just me, but that we tend to be able to like think pretty specifically, like more so than maybe the general population.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to sound like highfalutin or whatever, but or an elitist, but it's like I think we're specific thinkers, and I think that has benefits.
Right. And yeah, exactly. I mean, whatever we do on a regular basis, that practice makes quote unquote perfect, since I don't think perfect exists. But but practice makes perfect.
Better, yeah.
Yes, practice makes you more practiced. And and so it's that we are in the practice of investigating these things and at having to get specific and so we would probably be better at it, I would hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, oh boy. Okay, so I think I'm gonna have to wrap it up here. Maybe
Okay.
we'll have you on another time because this is just so much fun. And I can't believe I misplaced this. I was looking for your information for. Here we go. Okay, thank you. All right, you guys. So I'm just gonna leave that in because I just had So much fun. I forgot what I normally do right here. And what we're doing here is we're going to thank Kevin again so much for coming on the podcast. It was just so much fun getting to chat with you and have you share your story with our listeners. And then please learn more about him at www.kevinotis.com. And be sure to check out his book, you guys. Didn't it sound amazing? Yes, it did. So be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, if you're looking for a performance coach to help you with that voice, body, mind connection, help you in life and work to bring more of your authentic self for those auditions, public speaking opportunities, relationships, just, anything where performance can help you, I'm always happy to help. Feel free to reach me at beyondtechniquecoaching@gmail.com. And as always, if you enjoyed the episode, please like, share, subscribe. Those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, along with your comments, it really helps to get the word out. We are on 6 continents right now and couldn't have done that without you. So thank you so much for your support. If you are so inclined to throw some of your dollars our way, please do that at Patreon at Beyond Technique with Samantha Rund, because it really helps with the production value and getting all of these things here to keep the podcast going. So thank you so much and stay safe and stay healthy.